Perfume is not just a mixture of pleasantly smelling materials. It's a carefully balanced blend with a definite structure. So apart of having a very definite scent identity, a good perfume must meet some technical requirements. In today's video, I'm gonna teach you, we're gonna learn and demystify what are those technical requirements and how to achieve a well-balanced, amazingly smell perfume. So here are the 3 technical requirements of well-constructed perfume. First, and very important, it must be sufficiently strong. Here we are talking about longevity and long-lasting life and persistent. So, first requirement must be sufficiently strong. Second requirement, very important, diffusion. A good, well-constructed perfume should be very diffusive, or you can smell it from apart, or somebody passing next to you 3-4 meters should also scent and smell your perfume. This is the diffusiveness. A well-constructed perfume should be diffusive. And the third very important requirement is that it must retain its character from the beginning to the end of the evaporation time, which means from the moment you apply it on the skin until the last evaporation time, the perfume should be still recognizable. So those are the 3 very important technical requirements amongst other. So we're going to speak in details about this. The level of difficulties for this lesson today is for advanced perfume making, but I'm going to try to explain you as easy and as possible for you guys, even though if you're starting your perfume journey now, to understand, because this is very fundamental core information that you're not going to find easily nowhere. And that's why it's very important. For those of you that are new to my channel, I am Julian Angelov. I created my own perfume brand and I make my own perfumes, manufacture it with my formulas. So my brand is also inspired from vintage, timeless elegance fragrances with modern new materials. In perfumery, as like in other arts like music or also painting, they are styles. Those styles are very typical for the time the perfumes were created. For example, in the music, you have back on the time, you have classical music, and then you have hard rock, different style, then you have a pop rock, different style, then you have rap. All those are specific styles that represent certain time and that were very characteristical for the music. Same applies to painting. You have Impressionism, for example, you have Cubism, you have modern art. The same styles are applied to perfumery. So the style of creating a perfume, they varied very much and they changed very much from 100 years ago when the perfumers were making perfumes. Those techniques creating a perfumes, they are very different and they evolved during the time. What is typical for those techniques of creating the composition, the structure of a perfume is that every single materials was typical for that time, that period that was used, and also for the structure of the perfume that was used. Briefly saying, the way of making perfume, composing its structure, is very typical for the time it was made and also implies very typical for the time scents and ingredients. Those structure can be very, very different. So, for example, you have 3 different perfumes. You have Trésor of Lancôme, you have L'Air du Temps, and you have Shalimar. Those are three very representative perfumes with very different perfume structure composition that are typical for the times. Now I'm going to explain you more in details. As I said before, the perfumers were using techniques of formulating that were typical for their time 100 years ago. For example, uh, most of these structures were discovered by intuition and by experimenting. So this is a good news. We don't have to understand why those structures work, but we only have to retain that they do. So those structures were discovered back on the time from professional perfumers, and those structures still work these days. So this gave us back on the time the possibility of creating many and building other variations that are based on those classical structures. So as everything in science was based, for example, on the ancient Greek inventions, the same techniques can apply in perfumery. Those great structures or working models were created. We're gonna call them classical. And after that, today many other perfumers, modern perfumery was built on the base of those classical forms with many different variations. So the good news is that there is nothing new, and there are structures that were discovered, they work. Now, with experimenting and having a great intuition, you also may discover a new structure of a perfume that may work for the future, and you may become a super famous, wealthy person in the world of perfumery, creating your own perfumes. But for now on, we're gonna base our understanding of those classical structures. So modern perfumery, now we have a lot of new materials invented as synthetic aroma chemicals and all other new invented smells that don't have equivalent in the nature. So one very important thing here is to know, as I told you before, that the structure of a perfume is related to its materials that were used on the time. For example, today we are using a lot of materials that have this kind of gourmand or yummy, delicious smell. Those perfumes are also created on the old classical structure of a perfume that I'm gonna review you in a while. This is a core information. Once you understand what is this structure, you can make miracles, and you're gonna understand that it's not that difficult, even though you are starting your perfume journey right now. That's why I'm calling this the core, fundamental core of making good, professional, lasting perfume. Here is one very successful structure that I'm gonna review for you guys. So back on the time, more than 50 years ago, one French very famous perfumer, Jean Cagle, he created a structure that was successful, and he established one of the bases of the modern perfumery. So maybe you guys have heard about Jean Cagle's method. This method, the students of the perfumery schools are using the entire first year. So imagine they are experimenting one entire year learning about this method, what it consists. So basically, Jean Carlos said that you have to experiment with materials in order to find the best ratio of blending two ingredients together, that neither of each ingredients overtake of the other, or simply said, those two ingredients are blended harmoniously together that they create a new specific smell that is different from each ingredient. So this is what we call a synergetic accord. So these accords actually are used today in blending and creating new perfumery. So imagine a perfume like this one here. It's a combination of materials. You have more than 26, 30 materials. In the modern perfumery, you can have also more than 60 materials inside. So those materials are divided by accords, or the accords is the base construction base of a perfume. In the modern perfumery, perfume were also created by four different accords blended together and adding other singular materials or other uh, accords or bases on the top of those four accords. Are you guys sure you understand? It's a bit complicated. Let me say it again. So this method is by creating harmonious accords. This is a method of composing a structure of a perfume or taking two materials, blending them together in such a harmonious way that they create a new smell. For example, if you blend two materials, patchouli and hydroxycitronellol, you're gonna make another smell. So this is one of the structure used back on the time of creating a perfume. And now you can create a perfume by like having four accords, main accords of the fragrance can be also, for example, you can have balsamic ambery accord, you can have on the top flower accord, you can have a bit of woody accord, you can have a bit of fruity accords. Those two accords blended together, you add on the top another ingredients like a citrus or you add musk, and this is what it gives you the structure, simply said, of a modern perfume. So as you understand, it's not only blending materials randomly and hoping for some miracles to come out. No, this is years of studying of ingredients and experimenting this, how this was discovered. So it may sound difficult to you, but actually it's not that difficult that it may sound, and gives you a lot of freedom of experimenting. So yes, there are some things you guys have to know. For example, the most important is to know the ingredients and how they interact between each other. So we're not gonna lose so much time of there are more than 3,000 ingredients and you have to blend each two together. For example, one part of one, 9 parts of this, 2 parts and 8 parts, in order to also find the optimum balance of those two ingredients. This is a lot of time consuming. By experimenting, you can actually discover two materials that they are synergetically together and they exchange their power together, create a new smell that it doesn't remind you either of those primary two ingredients that are blended together. Hopefully, I hope it's not too complicated. Let me say it again. So creating of this, one of the methods is creating by accords. So you can create 2 or 4 main accords and you can add other ingredients as a modifier of those 2 accords. In this way, you're gonna achieve amazing depth of the fragrances, and also if those 2 accords are synergetically blended, they gonna be long lasting and diffusive, because not only you blend the smell, but something magical happens inside and you blend the power of longevity and diffusion of those 2 fragrances. So stay with me, I'm gonna give you some other examples of other structures of perfume that are less complicated. Jean Carl was a genius perfumer back on the time, and he gave a very important basis of the perfume structure and the perfume blending techniques. So he also created this formulation of the Perfume Triangle. So maybe guys, you already know. So he also classified ingredients according to their evaporation level, such as ingredients that are very fast evaporate. He put them as a top notes. Those ingredients are very often like 95% of the citruses. Those are top notes because they evaporate very quickly. Then he put also ingredients under the section of middle notes according to their evaporation level. Those ingredients that can last between 30 minutes to 3 hours, and he put them as a middle notes. Those middle notes are mostly all the flower notes like rose, like jasmine, and other synthetic ingredients. So those are the middle notes. And also we have the base bottom notes. Those are ingredients with very low evaporation level. They last longer on the skin. They don't evaporate that quickly. That's why they stay between 3 to 6, 8, 9 hours on the skin, sometimes even more. And yes, Jean Carl created this triangle that he put on the top notes, in the middle notes, and the bottom notes. And there is a new technique of creating, blending, composing, structuring a perfume according to these notes, according to Jean Carl. So he put very precise ratio how much you need to use of top notes, middle notes, and bottom notes. And this is very known factor. If you Google, you can find it very easily, and this is absolutely confusing for apprentice perfumers that they start making perfumes. They want to use this technique that think, oh, this applies to every ingredient I use. This is absolutely misconception and very confusing, and they start experimenting and they are lost in the calculations, in the stuff, and they are so discouraged they stop even making perfumes. Yes, happens very often, and I hope this is not your case. Don't get discouraged of this structure. Although this structure, it may work very good. A perfect example of a perfume created to this structure is L'air du temps by Nina Ricci. So this structure is the following. In the top notes, the ratio should be 15 to 20% top note. The middle note should be 30 to 40% middle note, and the base note should be 45-55% of base note. So yes, this is how this perfume was constructed. Is it work? Yes, it's a great perfume. But this is not an official structure that every perfume should be created in this way. It worked back on the time because the perfumer was using specific ingredients that work in that ratio. So this is not the only unique perfume structure that exists and that works. Please remember this. So although this is helpful to make a structure, this is also have its downsides. This is mostly based on evaporation level, and it's mostly when you evaluate a fragrance. This structure of triangle is not perfect. It was created by experimenting, and I'm going to tell you why. It is not perfect because you have materials that are between top and middle nodes. You have materials that evaporation level is between middle and bottom nodes, and that they're not classified. Those materials are called blenders, and modifiers. Also, they exist on the top of the top, middle, and bottom nodes. So you have 5 elements here. So yes, is it working, this method? Working perfectly. Is it the only one? No. Can you reproduce it? If you want, we can reproduce it. Is it mandatory to be a successful perfume to do this method? Absolutely no. Another technique that is used today in the modern perfumery, it's much more simpler. It's a cost efficient because today's, all the ingredients are very expensive, and perfumers tend to reduce the cost by limiting the amount of the ingredients they're putting inside. So instead of 60, they want to put probably 10, 20, and they're reducing the cost. Yes, you can make a nice fragrance only using 10 ingredients, and you can create amazingly smell natural fragrance even if you're using synthetic ingredients. 10 are enough. So another perfumer, he's using this kind of simplistic method of creating perfumes, which is like she creates one successful accord of blending two ingredients inside, and she ornate or decorate these accords with top notes, middle notes, blenders, and some modifiers. So yes, simplicity is also a great formulation method. 10 materials, one accord, some decoration, make it last longer. It's enough to be a very good rounded perfumes. But why we love these vintage perfumes? Because they were very complex and very into depth. They have amazing, in the construction, they have 10, 15 accords or two materials blending together, and this gives amazing depth and longevity. But this is not mandatory. You can create a perfume, but only one accord. Also, for those of you that are experimenting perfumery right now, you start blending top notes, middle notes, bottom notes, and still you cannot achieve the effect you want to achieve to call this very nice smelling perfume that is long lasting on the skin and have diffusion. Well, there is something that you are not using correctly inside, or there is no synergetical accords, and this is very important, and this is comes my knowledge here to help you achieve this. Yes, so I'm very busy with my perfume brand right now, but I do help people with some lessons, tutoring, and also I create perfumes for people like you and me that want to start their own businesses at home, and they need somebody to create their formula. This is what I am doing now. So two options: you can also learn, or you can trust me to create your formula for you. So guys, don't be discouraged here. There are many ways of creating perfumes. So if you experiment, and by experimenting you achieve something super nicely smelling that lasts on the skin, that has a projection, yes, congratulations, you discovered something that works. So some of the ingredients by themselves, they even may smell unpleasant, but putting them together with other, we may cover up a little bit that smell and use the longevity of that ingredient to make it last longer. This is another technique. So as you see, there is no only one technique that people say, yes, this is the only technique to call one perfume successful. No, you have the freedom of creation to use whatever technique you want to apply to you. If you can achieve something that is long lasting, diffusive, has its own identical smell from the beginning to the top to the end, you are genius. So hopefully this was helpful for you. You know how to contact me. Go to my website. My email is also parfum@julianandrov.com. I'm going to put it in the description box, and hope to see you soon with thumbs up. And good luck with your experimentation today.